Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to review a new to me paint. It is called Aquala, and it's from the Kusakabe company in Japan. I had a viewer request a review on this brand. I'd never heard of it before, and I contacted the company and they sent me a set and some brochures about the paint, and they sent me the 18 color set, which has 20 milliliter tubes. I'll show you really quick what it looks like here. Oops, I got one of my tubes out here on the table. So it looks like that. And before I even opened it up to use it, I looked at some of the information that came with it. It came with a hand-painted color chart. I don't know if that comes typically with your order or not, or just because I had asked for kind of review information about the product. But gorgeous colors, 72 colors that are all available in the 20 milliliter size, plus they have two larger sizes, but not all colors are available in there. And they also have mediums to help you achieve different effects with this paint. This is not your typical acrylic or oil paint. It is actually an alkyd resin that is suspended in water. So you get kind of the properties of both alkyd oils and acrylics, and you can actually get some watercolor effects too. So the keyword or the brand name or the word they use a lot on their website is Enogu, which I guess means enough in Japan, or a tool for fulfilling art, but it is a tool for fulfilling all the different types of art you might want to make. And that's kind of a big claim. So I decided I would play with it a bit before I attempted to review it, because I wanted to make sure that it actually would do the things that that they said that it would. So the first thing that I did, and you've probably already seen this tutorial up on my channel, I did this painting here of my little brush cup. I had my brushes in a little cup like that the other day, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cute, I should do a painting of that. And I was working on a fairly rough canvas, and I have to admit I don't really like these canvases because they are really rough, and I keep telling myself I really need to re-gesso all of them so they'll be ready to go. But I kind of forgotten that, and I started work with this, and I found that the paint was really smooth and it covered my canvas really well. I didn't feel aggravated at all painting on this, and the last time I painted on one of these with my acrylic gouache, I was feeling very irritated because it was so rough, that the gesso was so uneven that came on the canvas. I felt like I couldn't paint well on it. So that was kind of neat, because it makes me think that probably if you were doing something like home decor wise, say you were painting something like on like an old wooden palette or furniture that's maybe not really smooth, or something that's a little bit rougher, maybe you're painting on concrete or doing a mural or whatnot, this paint would flow really well on that. It's a soft body paint. It's got a fairly long open time. I had no trouble with things drying too fast for me, but I was also able to kind of glaze over before it was completely dry, unlike oils. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Granted, this was just a 40-minute painting, but I found it worked really well. I used watercolor pencils to sketch my design on there, and there was no problem with those working together, and I found painting with it a very pleasurable experience. I'm not a real big fan of painting with acrylics. I enjoy oils, I enjoy watercolors, but acrylics I tend to not like quite so much. I kind of use them for more home decor pieces where I'm not really painting like art painting. So I was really impressed with that, and then I decided that I would try using it on paper, thinned down like a watercolor, and I did this, and this is just some inexpensive student grade watercolor paper, and I really liked the way it flowed in the background. And then I got thinking after I painted this, and I did enjoy it, I thought, geez, I wonder how different it really is from other acrylics. So then I took some of the acrylics I had and I painted them full strength, and I added some water and added it into a wash to see how they would flow. And here's the Aquala here, and if I feel them, I can almost feel that it's got a little bit of an oily sheen. It's not wet anymore, but it does have kind of like a soft eggshell type finish, whereas this is acrylic gouache. It's very matte. This is the Liquitex Heavy Body, which didn't disperse well in water, but it's not designed to. It's a heavy body paint for like impasto. M-Gram, which I like, has a glossier finish. If I can tip it to the light, you may be able to see the finishes on those paints. Up here it's full strength, under there is putting it in a wash of water just to see what would happen. The M-Gram flowed really well because of its high pigment strength. But even the cheap, 30-cent a tube craft paint from the craft store flowed pretty well. The thing I did notice about the Aquala is that it does have a really high pigment load. It reminds me a lot of the M. Graham with less sheen. So I was really impressed with that. The Turner actually dissolved pretty well too. And then I actually went over it with a swipe of watercolor just to see if it would repel or if it would allow me to overlay. And in the brochure it recommends using Aquila over watercolors if you want to, but it actually didn't repel when I went over it. It did in full strength, but when I went over a wash, like if I was to go do watercolor over that, it would let me go over that with watercolor, I discovered. So mixing this, since this isn't a traditional acrylic, even though you can do this tutorial here that I showed you, you can do that in acrylics or oils, it doesn't matter. But this will actually mix with oil. So I did a little example here, just on a scrap of cardstock because I was curious. Here I mixed the Aquila with oil paint, mixed up. Usually if you try to mix acrylics with oils, it gets a little chunky and kind of globs and is gross, but this mixed, surprisingly. I used equal parts. And it does say you shouldn't mix it with acrylics. You can use it with acrylics, like overlaying it, use it on top of acrylics, but they were stressing separate layers. But just for fun, just to see and compare, I did mix it with acrylics and it mixed well. There's also no odor with this, so I couldn't even smell anything when I was painting with it. I'm not highly sensitive to like, you know, chemicals, but that's interesting to know if you are sensitive and maybe you want something that's a little bit more like an alkyd, but you don't want to deal with the solvents and just the smell. I mean, oil paints do have a smell. I happen to enjoy the smell, but some people can't tolerate it. So that's an interesting feature. And what else did I want to say? Oh, so this is a very soft body, long open time paint. Very similar to other soft body acrylics that you would use, but you can use it. They do have some products that will make it so that you can have a lot of impasto. Like if you wanted to do palette knife painting and you wanted it standing up and thick, they do have a medium for that. They have a bunch of different mediums to make the paint do other things. I don't have any of those, but it's interesting to note. So, and I think the reason somebody had asked me to review this is because this paint claims that it can be all things. You can do watercolor effects, you can do your traditional acrylic painting, you can do oil alkyd looks, mixed media, overlaying. It will work with what you have, but on its own it is a very versatile product. And I was kind of thinking, oh, I don't know, that's awful high. That's a pretty high bar. Those are lofty claims. But I have to say I'm very impressed. I'm impressed with it. I'm not a huge acrylic paint user, but I found this very convenient to paint with. I didn't feel like I was fighting against the clock to blend and to get my paint down before it dried and I couldn't work back into it, so that's a good thing. And I do have a coupon code. If you do want to buy this, if you use the coupon code thefrugalcrafter, you can save 10% on your Aqyla order. I'll put that in a link to the website in the video description so you can look at it. All the prices are in Japanese yen. So basically, if you just need a quick cheat sheet, move your decimal point over 2 points. So if it says 47,000 yen, it's like 47 bucks. So that's kind of how I figure it out. The other thing I want to mention about this, I should have started off with this, but is the pigments that they use in the Aquila paint are your tried and true pigments. Your ultramarine is going to be PB29, your cobalt blue is going to be PB28, your phthalo blue is going to be PB15. You know, it's the stuff that you are used to seeing. Also, the pigment strength is really good. There's no extenders. When I was painting it out, when I was adding water to the paint to make my watercolor example here, it was extremely transparent. It wasn't chalky or have that weird filler sediment in there. Of course, if you're using a paint that's more, I used colors that were pretty transparent. If you're using a paint that obviously has a white added, like if you were going to use like the aqua blue, that clearly has a white added into it. I mean, I had to add white into this to get the background. And that's a color that just happens to have white in it. It's not gonna give you that watercolor effect as well. It's gonna be like using an opaque watercolor, and that is probably not what you're going for if you're going for watercolor. But for the bright colors, the pigment strength is fantastic. I was happy that I could mix it with my acrylics, even though the company doesn't recommend it. I'm just telling you, I mixed some Liquitex with the Aquila, and it mixed fine with my palette knife. There's no chunking or separating. Mixed fine with my oil paints, even though they recommend layering rather than mixing. And they actually said in their brochure, and I'm not sure if this is like kind of all their brochures all together. You could probably request one when you ordered if you wanted to, or you might even be able to request one just to see for yourself. But they recommend overlaying, and they actually have, if you are noticing that maybe you're laying the Aquila over oil paints, and I have not tried that. If it tends to bead up, they do have a, instead of using water, they say don't use water, use their medium for that. So they have several different mediums that you can use with that, and varnishes and different stuff like that, just like any other, you know, acrylic line or oil paint line would have. I'm really impressed. I like it. I'm not a huge acrylic paint fan. I like this. And I love that there's no odor, and I love that I can get a very oil painty look because of the open time of the paint without having to actually crack open an oil paint tube. I was able to wash all my brushes with my brush cleaner, which is the Old Masters brush cleaner. That's what I prefer. And it came out just as easy as acrylic paint. I would give it a go. Whether you need it, if you have acrylics and oils and watercolors already, of course not. But if you're looking for something that can be a little compact, you know, you've like, this is the 18 set, you know, fits in this little box. It does a lot in a small footprint, which I think is nice. I have no qualms recommending this. A set like this is $46 American, I believe. And, you know, 10% coupon code. You can buy stuff open stock. That's another thing. They have 72 colors. There's 18 here, obviously. Probably the most useful colors. I was really pleased with what they put in there. The pigment information is right on the tube, like that one says PY3, a lot of single pigment colors, but they're very transparent about what they offer. And I love that if I use up a tube and I love it, I can just go buy that one tube and I don't have to rebuy the set with a bunch of stuff that I haven't used up yet. So that's also a mark of a legitimate company, a company that's going to be around for a while, and a company that's really thought about their customers and what their needs are. As I said, I also want to stress the fact that I didn't buy this. I was given this by the company for review purposes, so I feel it's important to let you know that I don't take money for reviews, but I want you to know if I was given something versus if I paid for it, just because I think that you need to, I think you have the right to factor that into your decisions when you're deciding to buy something or not. So I like to be honest. I like to be transparent. I like to be transparent, just like I like to be transparent. I like the companies I use to be transparent. So I appreciate that, and I hope that's useful to you. But anyways, check out these tutorials, see what you think there, and mixed up with what I've said today. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Their brochures had some really interesting artwork done with like layering, and I was kind of excited about that. They had a portrait in here where they had, I think, done the portrait and then layered over it. Like, I just thought this was kind of cool. Well, I don't know if you can see that. They took, they masked off an area and then they laid down a thinned out veil of Aquila on top. I found it thinned really well with water, but if you're working on canvas or a non-porous surface, you don't want to go more than 30% water because then you affect the bond with acrylics anyway, and I would assume it would be the same with Aquila, you know, just because it's, you know, it's got a bond. It's got to have something to bond, and water does not have any bonding properties. But they do have quick dry mediums that will thin it out, I believe, and make it dry a little faster if you're looking for something like that. So, you know, have a look. They also have a YouTube channel. I'll link that down below if you want to see some of their demos, because obviously they're more proficient with it than I am. But honestly, I found that if you're used to working with acrylics or oils, you're not going to have a problem transferring those skills with the Aquila paint. I did this in 42 minutes, including the time to sketch and gab, and you know how I love to waste time during videos. And the thing I like about it is that the sheen is very uniform. It's like an eggshell, maybe between an eggshell and satin. It's not a matte. I would want to, obviously, I always like to varnish things before I display them. But I don't think I'm going to have an issue with fading because of the pigments that they use. You can see exactly on the package what's on there. And it was enjoyable for me to paint with. And I am not somebody who usually enjoys acrylics all that much. I like them all right, but like I really love oils. I really love watercolors. So I felt like it was a pleasure to paint with. I felt like it was. Obviously, it's my feelings. I enjoyed it. So there. Okay, it's time to cut this video short. I probably should edit that bit out. But anyways, this is for a viewer who was requesting a tutorial on those, and oh, this is kind of interesting. I'm looking at my swatch that I mixed up before I did the video. The Aquala I mixed with oil paint looks like it's just about dry, and the acrylic looks like it's still wet. It made my oil paint dry quicker. This is the oil right there. That's crazy. I mean, it almost feels like an all pastel. Like if I rub my finger on it, it's like oil pastel. Wow, that's kind of cool. And the acrylic is still wet. That's interesting. Maybe it's not going to dry properly if I mix it with the acrylic. Check out the video description. I will check back on this tomorrow. If that does not dry well, then I'm going to put that in there, and that's probably why they don't recommend mixing the acrylics in Aquala, but they do recommend mixing the oils in the Aquala. Or they say it's okay. They say it's not really recommended. You can do it. It's better to layer it, better to glaze it. And that's the thing I like. They're honest about what the limitations of the product is. Like, it will work with everything. You're better off layering it. You can mix it, but it's better off if you just layer it. I like honesty. I like transparency. I'd rather have somebody tell me that their product won't do this than say it can do everything and leave it at that. So, so I'm impressed. I'm not often that blown away or surprised by medium, and I am so glad that a viewer requested that I review this, because I can see myself enjoying painting with this for quite a while. So there you have it. Thank you so much, and until next time, happy crafting.